Hey friends, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new. If you are new, thank you so much for clicking into this video. My name is Kay. I'm a professional home organizer and soprano here in the Boston area, and I'm here to inspire you to live a more organized life. If you are not new, what's up? Thank you so much for coming back. Let's talk about clutter today. Because you know what? I love talking about clutter. I love it. It's fun. It's part of my whole brand, I guess. So let's talk about it today. So let's talk about how clutter around your home is affecting your brain, your mood, all that stuff, affecting you in here. And maybe perhaps in here. Maybe perhaps in here. We're going to talk about it all today. We're going to talk about what clutter is. We're going to talk about how it's affecting some hormones in your body. We're going to talk about an actual study someone did about clutter. We're going to spill all the tea today about how clutter is affecting your brain. So if you're looking around your home right now and you're like, damn, it's a little cluttered, this is what it might be doing to you. So let's begin the video by talking about what clutter is. Now, I have made a video, I think maybe 6 years back. The video is super old. I may remake it at some point, but I do still stand by that information in the video. In my experience with helping other people organize and declutter their homes, I have come to the conclusion that clutter is in the eye of the beholder. I feel like, yes, there is kind of a general understanding of like whether a space is cluttered or not. I even find like my office to be like just a little bit cluttered. But everyone has a different threshold where they are unable to function or whether it starts to stress them out. So some people having anything on the counter is like a little too much for them. And some people can have tons of things out all at the same time and it doesn't affect them at all. Like they just don't have any problems with it. So the wonderful thing about being a human is everyone is an individual. We all see the number of things in our space differently. So clutter is in the eye of the beholder. I still stand by the general guidance that clutter are things around your house that either don't have a home, either because you don't really need them or because they just don't have a home, that it can sort of be clutter but not clutter at the same time, and that there are a number of more items out than you can handle, or more items actually stored than you can handle, because we're not going to like not talk about storage units. They are actually a huge problem, especially in this country. Things that fit in either of these categories are stressing you out, then it is clutter and you need to either deal with it or ask for help to deal with it. So let's talk about what having excess clutter in your home does to your brain. Now, I don't know how often I've talked about this, but both of my parents are physicians. My mother was an ophthalmologist. My father was an oral surgeon. So I was very interested in science and in medicine from a young age. I was very curious. I read a bunch of medical books. I did actually go on to do post-baccalaureate studies at Harvard Extension in anticipation of applying to veterinary school, but I did actually change my mind about 2 years into the process just because I just figured out that plan wasn't really for me, but I got a lot of education in the process and I'm still really interested in science and in medicine. And I have discovered that having a cluttered space is not only like bad for your mood and bad for your overall like, I don't know, like vibe, it actually does things to your brain. So let's talk about stress. Stress is one of those things you talk about. It's like always negative. Like, oh, we have too much stress. Try to reduce stress, blah, blah, blah. Stress is something you actually need in your life. There's amounts of stress that actually can be really helpful for your nervous system, for your general overall like ability to cope with life. So like, let's talk about short-term stress, you know, like you have a test coming up and oh my gosh, you're nervous, you need to study, you're a little bit stressed. That kind of stress, I think, is good for you because it teaches you how to deal with life. It makes your immune system, I think, ramped up for like a little bit of time. Because you notice like every time you get sick, it's always when you like relax. You know, it's never during the time when you're like, ah! It's always the time when you're just like, then finally you get a cold or something like that. So I think small amounts of stress are good for your system, but ongoing chronic stress, that's the bad thing. The problem with clutter and stress is that you have this visual distraction all around you. So let's think about like how you would be in nature, I guess, if you were out in the wild with, you know, a little loincloth on or something. There would be trees, animals, berries, the grass, a lake or whatever around you. There are a number of visual distractions, I guess, or visual stimuli, but I don't think it's too much to handle because a lot of the stuff is like really far away. The stuff close to you, I find not to be that much, but we live in homes now, and the things that we have around us are a lot. If you live in a space that you think is cluttered and you are try to ignore it, it's really hard. If you are able to see around you, you have a hard time just ignoring it visually. Having a large amount of clutter around you can actually cause a lot of stress. There was a study that was done in 2007 or 2006. Let me just check the date of the study. The study was done in 2009. The thing about the study that was really interesting is that when we wake up in the morning, you may not know this, when we wake up in the morning, our cortisol levels, and that is the hormone that we, I guess, mostly associate with being the stress hormone, but this is actually a really important hormone in your body. It regulates all, more things than just, it's not just associated with stress. We wake up with a really high level of cortisol, and then along the course of a day, it's supposed to taper off and reduce in amount in your body. And in the study, it was really interesting. They had all these people and they asked them to give a tour of their home and describe how they felt about their homes and whether or not they were organized and whether or not there was excess clutter. And the people who felt negatively about their environment, their home environment, their cortisol levels, and I will actually say that more specifically, it was more often women who felt this way. The worse they felt about their homes, the more the cortisol levels would like drop a little bit and then stay the same during the day. They didn't like do that steep drop off, and this affected the wives of the situation much more than the husbands. I think this study was done with mostly or all heterosexual couples, families. So they haven't done the same study with same-sex couples at this point or single people. But I'm just going to tell you the information that I find out. It was mostly the wives who were impacted by this. So their cortisol levels dropped off maybe a little bit and then stayed the same sort of elevated level throughout the day when they perceived that they lived in a messy or home that they perceived was not very organized or clutter-free. So it really does impact your stress in a real way. And they got their cortisol levels through saliva. They didn't like pee in a cup all day or anything. They just collected them with saliva. They spit in a cup or something. By the way, having to spit in a cup is like the most disgusting thing ever. I hate having any test where I have to spit in a cup. It's so disgusting. Let me know if you've ever had to spit in a cup to like take a test. Ugh. I'd rather pee in a cup, frankly. Clutter can also reduce your concentration and productivity. If you try to work in a cluttered environment, it's going to be really hard to get anything done unless you have extreme clutter blindness. I personally find that if I'm in a cluttered space or where things are like not as tidy as I'd like them to be, I'm unable to sit down and get anything done. There's something about a cluttered environment that is demotivating for me. And I could go on actually a whole tangent about how motivation actually isn't really a thing and that you should never wait for motivation. But I do find that being productive and having my house be cluttered or messy is not often happening at the same time. So it can really, really mess with your productivity and concentration. This is not to say that we have other reasons to not be able to concentrate nowadays, your cell phone, but clutter it's not helping the situation. Next, it can cause you to feel overwhelmed about not only your ability to deal with the clutter, but your ability to deal with anything in your life. I feel like people may see clutter as their ability or non-ability to get things done. Like if there's a pile of unfolded laundry or if there's a pile of unopened mail, they're like, well, I can't get that done. How am I supposed to get anything else in my life done? And again, I find it kind of demotivating to have a lot of clutter around because it makes you feel overwhelmed, like, well, I haven't done that yet. How am I supposed to get anything else done? You don't realize it can start just with having like a sink full of dirty dishes that you haven't been able to tackle. I feel like it starts there and it piles on very quickly. Not only can clutter affect your ability to concentrate, get things done, be sort of not stressed, it can actually interfere with something near and dear to my heart, sleep. Again, I could talk so long about sleep hygiene and how important it is to sleep an adequate amount per night and have that be like nice deep dream and all that stuff. If you try to sleep in a cluttered room or in a cluttered environment, it can be, again, too much visual noise for you when you're going to sleep and you're getting ready to sleep. I feel like the environment that you get ready to sleep in is actually really important. Turn down the lights, have it be nice and zen, you know, those like zen bedrooms. If there's a full hamper, clothes are falling out, your bed's unmade, you got toys all over the floor, your closet's busting out, you got stuff all over your nightstand. I see a lot of cluttered nightstands. What are you doing? I feel like my goal in 2024 is to get people to clear off their nightstands, because that stresses me out the most. If I'm going to be really honest, if any space in your home should be organized and clear and lovely, it should be your nightstand. That is the last thing that you interact with and see before you go to sleep. And if I turn to the right and it's a hot mess, that's not sending me off into dreamland in a very positive way. The only things that should be in your, this is like the soapbox video. The only things that should be on your nightstands are things you need when you're going to bed. Maybe your lotion that you moisturize your hands with, your lip balm, you know, your little Game Boy or Game Boy. I have a Game Boy. Okay, that's just me. And your night. I almost said night vision goggles. Your sleep mask, anything you need to send you off in dreamland, and it should be neat and tidy. I feel like in 2024, let's get our nightstands. Let's get our nightstands right. Let's get them right, y'all. Living in a cluttered space has an overall bad effect on your mood. I'm not even lying. I find this most often with parents and toys being the clutter in the space, especially with the moms. Not so, I again feel like it's the moms who are suffering the most. But when there are like tons of toys around, when the kids leave their gloves in spaces, and listen, I get it. Little people they're not there yet with their organizational skills. Not all of them. Some of them are born with it, but a lot of them they're not. They're tornadoes. But when there are tons of things all around the house, there's no establishment of like adult spaces. It just becomes one big playroom. This is just what I found out by talking to parents. Again, I am not a parent, but I've talked to people about how it makes them feel, and it stresses them out. So having a lot of clutter around can really affect how you feel. It can make you irritable. It can make you anxious. It can make you feel sad. It can make you feel angry. So there's a lot going on that you don't realize is just coming from the fact that you might have 40 socks out. Nothing makes you procrastinate more than looking at procrastination all around you. Being in a cluttered space can actually cause you to avoid doing things or put off doing things, because all of that clutter is just things you left undone. And I often find that once the clutter starts, it builds like this little millefeuille. Millefeuille? That's your analogy? Millefeuille? Pancake stack where you're like, well, I already have 5 unopened letters. What are 2 more? I'll do it tomorrow. And you just end up putting it off until the pile is like a foot tall. And it just makes you procrastinate more when you see other things that are undone, because why mess with the system? So clutter can really contribute to procrastination. And I know procrastination. I know her. We're friends. She's a mean girl, though. Clutter can definitely impact your self-esteem. It can make you feel like you can't handle life. And so when you look around and you see a cluttered space, you're like, well, clearly I can't adult. And now I know this is not the case. I know you can adult. But you may think that you can't adult because you look around, you see all the things, and it can make you feel like you can't handle the task of cleaning up, then maybe you can't handle other things and maybe you're a bad person, blah, blah, blah. It can go down this self-deprecation sort of rabbit hole. And I'm going to encourage you right now, don't do that to yourself. You got to be nice to yourself. Being mean to yourself is something that I did for years. It was very easy to do. It's something you get used to. It's maladaptive. Stop. Because it's not helping. However, having a cluttered space can definitely impact your self-esteem. Clutter can make it really hard to make a decision because you got a lot of choices out. As I've gotten older, I've found that I have less and less tolerance to the amount of decisions I need to make throughout the day, and I want to make the fewest decisions possible. For some reason, except when it comes to dresses, for some reason, I need choices. But things like makeup, software programs, I need to organize. Things like my phone, I don't need more than one phone. If you have a lot of stuff out and you have to make a lot more decisions than someone who doesn't have a lot of stuff out or a lot of stuff to deal with, if you only have 2 pairs of socks, you only have to deal with the decision to wear the white pair or the black pair. But if you have 100 pairs of socks, you're in for it when you gotta decide what pair of socks to put on. Wow. Again, everyone is an individual. The amount of decisions that you feel comfortable making is up to you. But if you feel in your heart that you start to get stressed, if you have too many decisions to make, that's your clue that you might have clutter. Lastly, now this is kind of extreme, clutter may affect your actual physical health, as in clutter collects dust, just like everything else in your home. Dust is all particles of hair, skin, gross stuff that's around your home that gets in your lungs, gets in your eyes, in other mucous membranes, can really irritate your person. And it can actually cause trouble if you have enough clutter in your home. Then you're talking about hazards, tripping hazards, falling hazards. Those are a little more extreme if you have some sort of hoarding disorder. We can talk about that in another video. But if there's clutter, if you're a regular person with clutter around, you may find yourself one day tripping over things or breathing in a lot more dust than you really should be breathing in because you have a lot of stuff around. It's really hard to keep up with dust. Let's not lie. Dust is everywhere, and the Swiffer doesn't come out as much as it should in our house, but when it does, I definitely notice. I'm very allergic to dust, so having more clutter means more things get dusty and means you may be sneezing and coughing and rubbing your eyes just a little bit more. So I'm going to close this video by saying just because you have clutter and your home is cluttered, that doesn't mean anything about you as a person. Your home is something that you can gain control of. Having clutter or having a cluttered home is just a state. You can get to another state where your home is functional, well organized, and clean. It's a transient state. It doesn't mean anything about you as a person. You watching this, you're a good person. And I love you and believe in you, and you can get there. But I think if you know that your clutter is affecting you in ways that you didn't think of before, it may be a little more of a motivator to do something about that. So if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.